Chapter 9 of Masters of Space. Recording by R.J. Davis. Masters of Space by Edward Elmer Smith, a.k.a. E. Doc Smith, and Edward Everett Evans. Translated by Robert Cicconetti, Stephen Blundell, and the online distributed proofreading team. Chapter 9. As has been intimated, no Terran can know what researches Larry and Thule and the other Oman specialists performed, or how they arrived at the conclusions they reached. However, in less than a week, Larry reported to Hilton. "It can be done, sir, with complete safety, and you will live even more comfortably than you do now." "How long?" "The mean will be about 5,000 Oman years. You don't know that an Oman year is equal to 1.293 plus Terran years." "I didn't know. Thanks." "The maximum, a little less than 6,000. The minimum, a little over 4,000. I'm very sorry we had no data upon which to base a closer estimate." "Close enough." He stared at the Oman. "You could also convert my wife?" "Of course, sir." "Well, we might be able to stand it, after we get used to the idea. Minimum, over 5,000 Terran years, barring accidents, of course." "No, sir. No accidents. Nothing will be able to kill you except by total destruction of the brain. And even then, sir, there will be the pattern." "I'll be damned." Hilton gulped twice. "Okay, go ahead." "Your skins will be like ours, energy absorbers. Your blood will carry charges of energy instead of oxygen. Thus, you may breathe or not, as you please. Unless you wish otherwise, we will continue the breathing function. It would scarcely be worthwhile to alter the automatic mechanisms that now control it. And you will wish at times to speak. You will still enjoy eating and drinking, although everything ingested will be eliminated, as at present, as waste." "We'd add uranexite to our food, I suppose, or drink radioactives, or sleep under cobalt-60 lamps." "Yes, sir. Your family life will be normal, your sexual urges and satisfactions the same. Fertilization and period of gestation unchanged. Your children will mature at the same ages as they do now." "How do you... Oh, I see. You wouldn't change any molecular linkages or configurations in the genes or chromosomes." "We could not, sir, even if we wished. Such substitutions can be made only in exact one-for-one replacements. In the near future you will, of course, have to control births quite rigorously." "We sure would. Let's see. Say we want a stationary population of 100 million on our planet. Each couple to have 2 children, a boy and a girl, born when the parents are about 50. The gals can have all the children they want then, until our population is about 1 million. Then slap on the limit of 2 kids per couple, right?" "Approximately so, sir. And after conversion, you alone will be able to operate with the full power of your 8 without tiring. You will also, of course, be able to absorb almost instantaneously all the knowledges and abilities of the old masters." Hilton gulped twice before he could speak. "You wouldn't be holding anything else back, would you?" "Nothing important, sir. Everything else is minor, and probably known to you. I doubt it. How long will the job take? And how much notice will you need? 2 days, sir. No notice. Everything is ready. Hilton, face somber, thought for minutes. The more I think of it, the less I like it. But it seems to be a forced put, and Temple will blow sky high. And have I got the guts to go it alone, even if she'd let me? He shrugged himself out of the black mood. I'll look her up and let you know, Larry. He looked her up and told her everything. Told her bluntly, starkly, drawing the full picture in jet black with very little white. There it is, sweetheart, the works, he concluded. We are not going to have 10 years. We may not have 10 months. So, if such a brain as that can be had, do we or do we not have to have it? I'm putting it squarely up to you. Temple's face, which had been getting paler and paler, was now as nearly colorless as it could become. The sickly yellow of her skin's light tan unbacked by any flush of red blood. Her whole body was tense and strained. There's a terrible snapper on that question. Can't I do it? Or anybody else except you? No. Anyway, whose job is it, sweetheart? I know, but I know just how close Thule came to killing you. And that wasn't anything compared to such a radical transformation as this. I'm afraid it'll kill you, darling. And I just simply couldn't stand it. She threw herself into his arms, and he comforted her in the age-old fashion of man with maid. Steady, hon, he said, as soon as he could lift her tear-streaked face from his shoulder. I'll live through it. I thought you were getting the howling helpers about having to live for 6,000 years and never getting back to Terra except for a Q strictly T visit now and then. She pulled away from him, flung back her wheaten mop and glared. So that's what you thought. What do I care how long I live, or how, or where, as long as it's with you? But what makes you think we can possibly live through such a horrible conversion as that? Larry wouldn't do it if there was any question whatever. He didn't say it would be painless, but he did say I'd live. Well, he knows, I guess. I hope. Temple's natural fine color began to come back. But it's understood that just the second you come out of the vat, I go right in. I hadn't ought to let you, of course, but I don't think I could take it alone. That statement required a special type of conference, which consumed some little time. Eventually, however, Temple answered it in words. Of course you couldn't, sweetheart, and I wouldn't let you, even if you could. There were a few things that had to be done before those two secret conversions could be made. There was the matter of the wedding, which was now to be in quadruplicate. Arrangements had to be made so that 8 big wheels of the project could all be away on honeymoon at once. All these things were done. Of the conversion operations themselves, nothing more need be said. The honeymooners, having left ship and town on a Friday afternoon, came back 1 week from the following Monday morning. The 8 met joyously in Bachelor's Hall, the girls kissing each other and the men indiscriminately and enthusiastically, the men cooperating zestfully. While it took some time to recompute the exact Ardian calendar, Terran day names and Terran weeks were used from the first. The Omans manufactured watches, clocks, and chronometers which divided the Ardian day into 24 Ardian hours, with minutes and seconds as usual. Temple scarcely blushed at all. She was so engrossed in trying to find out whether or not anyone was noticing any change. No one seemed to notice anything out of the ordinary. So finally she asked, Don't any of you really see anything different? The six others all howled at that, and Sandra, between giggles and snorts, said, "No, Precious, it doesn't show a bit. Did you really think it would?" Temple blushed furiously, and Hilton came instantly to his bride's rescue. "Chip chop the comedy, gang. She and I aren't human anymore. We're a good jump toward being Omans. I couldn't make her believe it doesn't show." That stopped the levity cold, but none of the six could really believe it. However, after Hilton had coiled a 20-penny spike into a perfect helix between his fingers, and especially after he and Temple had each chewed up and swallowed a piece of uranexite, there were no grounds left for doubt. "That settles it. It tears it," Karn said then. "Start all over again, Jarv. We'll listen this time." Hilton told the long story again and added, "I had to rework a couple of cells of Temple's brain, but now she can read and understand the records as well as I can. So I thought I'd take her place on Team 1 and let her boss the job on all the other teams. Okay?" "So you don't want to let the rest of us in on it?" Carnes' level stare was a far cry from the way he had looked at his chiefs a moment before. "If there's any one thing in the universe I never had you figured for, it's a dog in the manger." "Huh? You mean you actually want to be a... Hell, we don't even know what we are." "I do want it, Jarvis. We all do." This was, of all people, Teddy. "No one in all history has had more than about 50 years of really productive thinking. And just the idea of having enough time..." "Hold it, Teddy. Use your brain. The Masters couldn't take it. They committed suicide. How do you figure we can do any better?" "Because we'll use our brains," she snapped. "They didn't. The Omans will serve us, and that's all they'll do." "And do you think you'll be able to raise your children and grandchildren and so on to do the same? To have guts enough to resist the pull of such an ungodly, habit-forming drug as this Oman service is?" "I'm sure of it." She nodded positively. "And we'll run all applicants through a fine enough screen to... That is, if we ever consider anybody except our own BuSci people. And there's another reason." She grinned, got up, wiggled out of her coverall, and poised in bra and panties. "Look, I can keep most of this for 5 years. Quite a lot of it for 10. Then comes the struggle. What do you think I'd do for the ability, whenever it begins to get wrinkly or flabby, to peel the whole thing off and put on a brand spanking new smooth one? You name it, I'll do it. Besides, Bill and I will both just simply and cold-bloodedly murder you if you try to keep us out." "Okay." Hilton looked at Temple. She looked at him. Both looked at all the others. There was no revulsion at all. Nothing but eagerness. Temple took over. "I'm surprised. We're both surprised. You see, Jarve didn't want to do it at all, but he had to. I not only didn't want to, I was scared green and yellow at just the idea of it. But I had to, too, of course. We didn't think anybody would really want to. We thought we'd be left here alone. We still will be, I think, when you've thought it clear through, Teddy. You just haven't realized yet that we aren't even human anymore. We're simply nothing but monsters." Temple's voice became a wail. "I've said my piece," Teddy said. "You tell 'em, Bill." "Let me say something first," Kincaid said. "Temple, I'm ashamed of you. This line isn't at all your usual straight thinking. What you actually are is Homo superior, Bill." "I can add one bit to that. I don't wonder that you were scared silly, Temple. Utterly new concept, and you went into it stone cold. But now we see the finished product, and we like it. In fact, we drool."
I'll say we're drooling, Sandra said. I could do handstands and pinwheels with joy.
Let's see you, Hilton said. That we'd all get a kick out of.
Not now. Don't want to hold this up. But sometime I just will. Bev? I'm for it. And how? And won't Bernadine be amazed?
Beverly laughed gleefully.
At her wisecrack about the race to end all human races coming true.
I'm in favor of it too, 100%, Pointer said. Has it occurred to you, Jarve, that this opens up intergalactic exploration? No supplies to carry, and plenty of time and fuel?
No, it hadn't.
You got a point there, Frank. That might take a little of the curse off of it, at that.
When some of our kids get to be 20 years old or so and get married, I'm going to take a crew of them to Andromeda. We'll arrange then to extend our honeymoons another week, Hilton said. What will our policy be? Keep it dark for a while with just us 8, or spread it to the rest?
Spread it, I'd say, Kincaid said.
We can't keep it secret anyway, Teddy argued. Since Larry and Thule were in on the whole deal, every Oman on the planet knows all about it. Somebody is going to ask questions, and Omans always answer questions and always tell the truth.
Questions have already been asked and answered, Larry said, going to the door and opening it. Stella rushed in.
We've been hearing the damnedest things.
She kissed everybody, ending with Hilton, whom she seized by both shoulders.
Is it actually true, boss, that you can fix me up so I'll live practically forever and can eat more than 11 calories a day without getting fat as a pig? Candy, ice cream, cake, pie, eclairs, cream puffs, French pastries, sugar, and gobs of thick cream in my coffee?
Half a dozen others, including the Van der Moen twins, came in. Beverly emitted a shriek of joy.
Bernadine, the mother of the race to end all human races. You whistled it, Bertie, Bernadine caroled. I'm going to have 10 or 12, each one weirder than all the others. I told you I was a prophet. I'm going to hang out my shingle. Wholesale and retail prophecy. Special rates for large parties.
Her voice was drowned out in a general clamor.
Hold it, everybody, Hilton yelled. Chip-chop it. Quit it. Then, as the noise subsided, if you think I'm going to tell this tall tale over and over again for the next 2 weeks, you're all crazy. So shut down the plant and get everybody out here.
Not everybody, Jarve, Temple snapped. We don't want scum, and there's some of that even in Bucci.
You're so right. Who then?
The rest of the heads and assistants, of course, and all the lab girls and their husbands and boyfriends. I know they are all okay. That will be enough for now, don't you think?
I do think. And the indicated others were sent for, and in a few minutes arrived. The Omans brought chairs, and Hilton stood on a table. He spoke for 10 minutes, then, before you decide whether you want to or not, think it over very carefully, because it's a one-way street. Fluorine cannot be displaced. Once in, you're stuck for life. There is no way back. I've told you all the drawbacks and disadvantages I know of, but there may be a lot more that I haven't thought of yet. So think it over for a few days, and when each of you has definitely made up his or her mind, let me know. He jumped down off the table. His listeners, however, did not need days, or even seconds to decide. Before Hilton's feet hit the floor, there was a yell of unanimous approval. He looked at his wife. Do you suppose we're nuts?
Not a bit. Alex was right. I'm going to just love it.
She hugged his elbow ecstatically.
So are you, darling. as soon as you stop looking at only the black side. You know, you could be right. For the first time since the ghastly transformation, Hilton saw that there really was a bright side and began to study it. With most of USci and part of the Navy and selectees from Terra, it will be slightly terrific at that. And that habit-forming drug ejection isn't insuperable, darling, Temple said. If the younger generations start weakening, we'll fix the omens. I wouldn't want to wipe them out entirely, but how do we settle priority, Dr. Hilton? A girl called out, a tall, striking brunette laboratory technician whose name Hilton needed a second to recall. By pulling straws or hair? Or by shooting dice or each other or what? Thanks, Betty. You've got a point. Sandy Cummings and department heads first, then assistants. Then you girls in alphabetical order, each with her own husband or fiancé. And my name is Ames. Oh, goody. Larry, please tell them to...
I already have, sir. We are set up to handle 4 at once.
Good boy. So scat, all of you, and get back to work. Except Sandy, Bill, Alex, and Teddy. You 4 go with Larry. Since the new sense was not peyondex, Hilton had started calling it perception, and the others adopted the term as a matter of course. Hilton could use that sense for what seemed like years, and actually was whole minutes, at a time, without fatigue or strain. He could not, however, nor could the omens, give his tremendous power to anyone else. As he had said, he could do a certain amount of reworking, but the amount of improvement possible to make depended entirely upon what there was to work on. Thus, Temple could cover about 600 light years. It developed later that the others of the Big Eight could cover from 100 up to 400 or so. The other department heads and assistants turned out to be still weaker, and not one of the rank and file ever became able to cover more than a single planet. This sense was not exactly telepathy, at least not what Hilton had always thought telepathy would be. If anything, however, it was more. It was a lumping together of all 5 known human senses and half a dozen unknown ones called collectively intuition into one super sense that was all-inclusive and all-informative. If he ever could learn exactly what it was and exactly what it did and how it did it, but he'd better chip-chop the wool gathering and get back onto the job. The Stretts had licked the old masters very easily and intended to wipe out the Omans and the humans. They had no doubt at all as to their ability to do it. Maybe they could, if the masters hadn't made some progress that the Omans didn't know about. They probably could. That was the first thing to find out. As soon as they had been converted, he'd call in all the experts, and they'd go through the master's records like a dose of salt through a hillbilly schoolmarm. At that point in Hilton's cognitions, Sawtelle came in. He had come down in his gig to confer with Hilton as to the newly beefed up fleet. Instead of being glum and pessimistic and foreboding, he was chipper and enthusiastic. They had rebuilt 1,000 Oman ships. By combining Oman and Terran science and adding everything the first team had been able to reduce to practice, they had hyped up the power by a good 15%. 700 of those ships, and all his men, were now arrayed in defense around Ardrey. 300, manned by Omans, were around Fuelbin. Why? Hilton asked. It's Fuelbin they've been attacking.
Minor objective. The captain demurred positively. The real attack will be here at you, the headquarters and the Grange. Then Fuelbin will be duck soup. But the thing that pleased me most is the control. And you never imagined such control,
No admiral in history ever had such control of 10 ships as I have of 700. Those omens spread orders so fast that I don't even finish thinking one, and it's being executed. And no misunderstandings, no slips. For instance, this last batch, 15 skeletons, far out, they're getting cagey. I just thought, box 'em in and slug 'em and in, across, out, Saco, pit. Just like that and just that fast. None of them had time to light a beam. Nobody before ever even dreamed of such control.
That's great, and I like it. And you're only a captain. How many ships can 5-jet Admiral Gordon put into space?
That depends on what you call ships. Super dreadnoughts, Perseus class, 6. First line battleships, 29. Second line, smaller, and some pretty old, 73. Counting everything armed that will hold air, something over 200.
I thought it was something like that. How would you like to be 5-jet Admiral Sawtelle of the Ardrian Navy?
I wouldn't. I'm Terran Navy. But you knew that, and you know me. So what's on your mind?
Hilton told him. I ought to put this on a tape, he thought to himself, and broadcast it every hour on the hour. They took the old masters like dynamiting fish in a barrel, he concluded, and I'm damned afraid they're going to lick us unless we take a lot of big, fast steps. But the hell of it is that I can't tell you anything, not one single thing about any part of it. There's simply no way at all of getting through to you without making you over into the same kind of a thing I am.
Is that bad?
Sawtelle was used to making important decisions fast.
Let's get at it.
Huh, Skipper? Do you realize just what that means? If you think they'll let you resign, forget it. They'll crucify you, brand you as a traitor, and God only knows what else.
Right. How about you and your people?
Well, as civilians, it won't be as bad.
The hell it won't. Every man and woman that stays here will be posted forever as the blackest traitors old Terra ever disgraced herself by spawning.
You've got a point there at that. We'll all have to bring our relatives, the ones we think much of, at least, out here with us.
Definitely. Now see what you can do about getting me run through your mill.
By exerting his authority, Hilton got Sawtelle put through the preservatory in the second batch processed.
Then, linking minds with the captain, he flashed their joint attention to the Hall of Records, into the right room, into the right chest, along miles and miles of braided wire carrying some of the profoundest military secrets of the ancient masters. Then, "Now you know a little of it," Hilton said. "Maybe a thousandth of what we'll have before we can take the stretch as they will have to be taken." For a second, Sawtelle could not speak. Then,
My God, I see what you mean. You're right. No Omens can ever go to Terra, and no Terrans can ever come here except to stay forever.
the two of them went out into space to the flagship, which had been christened the Orion, and called in the 6 commanders.
"What is all this senseless idiocy we've been getting, Jarve?" Elliot demanded.
Hilton eyed all 6 with pretended disfavor. "You 6 guys are the hardest-headed bunch of skeptics that ever went unhung," he remarked dispassionately. "So it wouldn't do any good to tell you anything, yet. The skipper and I will show you a thing first. Take her away, Skip." The Orion shot away under interplanetary drive, and for several hours Hilton and Sawtelle worked at rewiring and practically rebuilding 2 devices that no one, Oman or human, had touched since the Perseus had landed on Ardry. "What are you
I don't understand what you are doing, sir, Larry said. For the first time since Hilton had known him, the Oman's mind was confused and unsure. I know you don't. This is a bit of top secret master stuff. Maybe, someday, we'll be able to rework your brain to take it. But it won't be for some time. End of Chapter 9.